Hello and welcome to your screencast on the composition of blood. So what we need to be looking at is plasma, white blood cells, platelets and red blood cells. Please set up your Corneal Notes like this. Imagine this is your page where you put a line down the one side, at the half of it, and then on the one side, the right hand side, we put composition of blood, on the left hand side key questions. We are going to write the structure and function of plasma on the right hand side underneath plasma. Then underneath white blood cells, the structure and function of white blood cells, and so on until we get to red blood cells. So, first of all, before we start, what we need to be aware of is the composition of blood. So, the composition of blood, or blood, is made up of red blood cells. Okay, so red blood cells are also known as erythrocytes. This makes up 45% of blood. After red blood cells, at the bottom of this kind of test tube, we have white blood cells, which are known as leukocytes, and platelets. These make up less than 1% of blood. And then finally we have plasma, which makes up 55% of blood, 90% of which is water. Now I realise those percentages don't add up to 100, so not let that confuse you. We still need to know this information. So the composition of blood is plasma, white blood cells, platelets and red blood cells. Starting with plasma. Plasma is 90% water and contains electrolytes and proteins. That is kind of like the structure of it. It's what it's made up of. So we've got 55% of blood is plasma, 90% water, contains electrolytes and proteins. The function of plasma. So what does plasma do? What is its role? Okay, its role within the blood is to transport all blood cells, nutrients and waste products throughout the body. And also, this term here is thermoregulation, so basically heat control, thermo-heat regulation control. Its function is to control our heat by supplying sweat glands with fluid, and then we sweat and remove our heat, so we cool down, thermoregulation. So that's plasma, structure and function. Please have questions such as which composition of blood is made up of 90% water and contains electrolytes and proteins. Plasma. Function, which composition of blood transports all blood cells, nutrients and waste products throughout the body. Which blood cell thermoregulates by supplying sweat glands with fluid. Plasma. So they're your key questions you should have. If we move on to, don't know what happened there, apologies. So if we move on to white blood cells, they make up less than 1% of blood volume. Their function is to protect the body from infection, to identify and destroy, and remove bacteria and viruses. So that is the function of white blood cells. Let me just get back to this, apologies. So, questions, which blood cells make up less than 1% of blood volume. Don't worry too much about that one. The main one is the function. So which blood cells help to protect the body from infection as well as destroy and remove bacteria and viruses? That would be white blood cells as your answer. And then we have platelets. Platelets we do not need to really know the structure of, or we do not need to know the structure of platelets. What we do need to know is the function. Platelets are really important because they clot the blood to prevent blood loss. If we do not have platelets, we bleed out and we could potentially die. So what happens is they stick to the damaged area, forming a temporary platelet plug, and this seals the break. So this contains the blood, so we do not bleed out. So platelets are really important. That word clot, that word plug are very important when it comes to the function of platelets. So again, your question might be, which composition of blood helps to clot the blood to prevent blood loss, forming a temporary plug or a platelet plug, and so forth. You'll get your answer, platelets. Last but not least, we have got red blood cells. Red blood cell structure. This is important. They have a large surface area due to the curved and indented shape. So please make sure you have a question such as, which blood cells have a large surface area due to the curved and indented shape? Red blood cells is the answer. Function of the red blood cells. Again, highly important. Red blood cells are able to carry oxygen to all living tissue. They are able to do this because oxygen binds with a protein called hemoglobin, which is found within the red blood cell. So again, your question might well be, which blood cell carries oxygen, or which blood cell carries oxygen, binds to hemoglobin. Okay, red blood cell is the answer. Or which blood cells carry oxygen? Red blood cells. Which blood cells contain hemoglobin to help carry oxygen? Red blood cells. So you get the idea. That is the composition of blood. I need Cornell notes and questions on this for Monday's lesson. Thank you for listening.